Well, I'm really excited about our interview today, and I wrote down some questions. So I know when I was there this past March, um, that it was a wealth of information from every day going to all of our different sites that we went to, and I was very impressed, I have to say, because whenever anyone would have a question, you could just rattle off an answer off the top of your head, and it was very impressive. So with one question and then an answer comes five more questions. So yeah, so I wrote some questions down today and look forward to kind of going through those with you. But I thought we could start by you just sharing a little bit about your past and how you got interested in doing this. My understanding is that you are an Egyptologist.
Mhm. Exactly. I became interested in this field when I was almost 10 years old
Mm.
because I was born in Memphis, Egypt,
Hmm.
the original Memphis.
The original.
And I was in the fourth grade. They took us in a school trip to Saqqara.
Hmm.
Was my first time to see foreigners, tourists.
Mm.
And I became very interested to have a contact with them. But because we didn't study any English till high school, so I couldn't have any conversation with them.
Hmm.
My teacher, who is still alive, and I appreciate his information, and he helped us in a great way.
Mm.
He told me you need to speak English or foreign language to contact with them.
Hmm.
So I saw an Egyptian person walking with them. So I told him, here is some guy, an Egyptian. So what he's doing with them? He told me this is a tour guide.
Mm.
So from that day, I decided to become a tour guide
Mm.
like that person.
Hmm.
And after high school, I went to Cairo University and I studied the same type of subjects like any Egyptologist:
Hmm.
history and religion, ancient Egyptian language, traditions, and some other tourist stuff
Hmm.
because we study more than the subjects of Egyptologists. Like Egyptologists focus only in Egypt, in the ancient Egyptian time, but we studied all the periods of Egypt: ancient Egypt, Greco-Roman Egypt, Coptic Egypt, Islamic Egypt, and even modern Egypt. We studied the Egyptian history till 1985,
Mm.
from thousands of years BC
Hmm.
till 1985.
Mm. Wow.
And after graduation, I became officially a tour guide with a license tourism, and I started to guide my people in the regular way, which I didn't like very much. I had so many questions, starting with Dahshur. Remember the Bent Pyramid?
Yes.
That was my first question when they taught us that it was built and the mistake happened, so they had to fix the angles. I didn't agree with this,
Mm.
and that was my beginning.
Mm.
That I told myself I need to do private researches and I need to read outside the books given to us from the university. And after started to work in the real field, I started to realize so many things didn't exist in the academic studies, and started to realize so many false information also.
Hmm.
So that is my story in a quick, short
Hmm.
way.
Yes, that's interesting. And we have an exciting tour coming up, and it's going to be the first 2 weeks or so in March. And we're headed to a lot of different places from Luxor to Dendera, where the famous light bulb hieroglyph is, and Saqqara. We're going between the Sphinx and the paws of the Sphinx, and looking forward to that. And you've done a tour not too long ago, earlier this year, with Robert Schoch. And he, of course, is the
Yes,
famous geologist that determined basically conclusively that the Sphinx is much older than what we previously thought.
yes. His theory, in a very short way, again,
Hmm.
that the Sphinx was there in that spot at 9,700 BC,
Mm-hmm.
not built. That it says that the erosions happened when, or in the end of the Ice Age,
Hmm.
9,700 BC.
Hmm.
So the Sphinx could be 5 years earlier or 5,000 or 50,000. Okay, so the point is, when that happened, 9,700 BC, the
Mm-hmm.
Sphinx was already there.
Wow, it's incredible. And you know, the message behind the Sphinx is very mysterious, and of course, its origins are mysterious as well. And there's lots of theories about perhaps like the original structure of the Sphinx and what it might have been. Some people say a dog, other people say a larger human being. What are your thoughts about all of this?
Yeah, you said the very famous stories: a lion, complete lion or lioness,
Mm-hmm.
Anubis as the jackal or a dog head, or was originally, as it is now, head of a human and body of a man.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that all the sphinxes we know, head of a human, body of a lion. That is for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But this one in particular, we are not very sure about it, and we have so many says or saying that it was different head, okay, and that different head could be, according to the two groups now, head of a lion or a lioness, or head of a jackal. I do have very interesting opinion that according to the ancient Egyptian concepts, if it is Anubis, the Sphinx must face west,
Mm-hmm.
the west side, because Anubis is the opener of the gates,
Mm-hmm.
and those gates are in the Emented. Emented means west.
Mm-hmm.
So to open the gates of the west, you must march or walk towards west, face west.
Ah, okay.
But if it is lioness, as we imagine, and it's very high possibility, like almost more than 85%,
Mm-hmm.
that uh, it is connected with what we call it Hor Em Akhir, Horus in the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
And the horizon could be west, could be east. So if it is west, it will be Anubis. So it is not west, so it is east. That's why the Sphinx is looking or facing east. So if we are talking about a lioness, so we can call her Tefnut. And according to the Egyptian mythology, the first creation or the first created thing or person or symbol was atom,
Mm-hmm.
complete one. And then the second two and three, Tefnut and Shu. Tefnut, the female lioness. Shu is her brother and husband, and he is a lion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so Shu and Tefnut, they are always together in
Mm-hmm.
any paintings or in any carvings, and we call them Daruti, the two lions. So we have Tefnut in Giza Plateau. In this case, where is Shu? So many people said Shu will be next to Tefnut, but no, that is not right. We didn't find any remains of a statue or anything either on the left side or the right side, which will be north and south.
Mm-hmm.
And according to a story from Robert Bouvan, that he used a kind of a program to see I forget the word. I think it's called or archaeology astronomy,
Mm.
astronomy.
Oh,
Okay,
yes.
it is the history
Mm-hmm.
of the astronomy, and he discovered that the constellation Leo was exactly facing the Sphinx.
Mm-hmm.
So the Egyptian, the Sphinx in Egypt is facing Leo in the space,
Mm-hmm.
and that was when around 80,000 BC.
Wow.
Not only the story is not only saying when, it's saying what was the shape and when was it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so now I'm very confident that it was a lion or a lioness for Tifnut or Mehit, which is similar because Tifnut is the nectar or symbol of moisture, mist, and Mehit means the ocean, which is water, which is
Mm-hmm.
close to moisture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you so many other evidences, like they found what we call it inventory. How do you call it? Small things to be given to the temples and like small offering,
Offerings, yes. Uh-huh.
small symbols. All of them had the symbol Sphinx as a complete lioness.
Hmm.
And if you visit the Egyptian Museum, and we will do our tour,
Mm-hmm.
the one in Cairo now, not
Mm-hmm.
the new one,
Mm-hmm.
we will go to the Rome of the Fourth Dynasty, uh, Khufu. We will find next to it a statue for the Sphinx with the head of a lioness.
Hmm.
So that
Interesting.
is like another evidence that the Fourth Dynasty saw the statue this way.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we believe that the change happened either during the Fourth Dynasty or after the Fourth Dynasty.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And there's also talk about how there might be some tunnels underneath the Sphinx or a connection point between the pyramids and the Sphinx. Have you heard any?
For sure, for sure, Giza Plateau has hundreds, maybe thousands of underground systems,
Wow.
tunnels. Okay, some of the tunnels are like 5 meters deep, some are 20 meters deep, some are
Mm-hmm.
30, some are deepless.
Mm-hmm.
There is one I know. We don't know how deep or how far it goes under the ground.
Mm.
Okay, and there is the famous Osiris shaft, which is almost 60 meters under the ground. 3 floors.
Wow.
Under the Sphinx, for sure, from the north side, which will be, if we face the Sphinx, it will be
Mm-hmm.
the right side,
Mm-hmm.
our right side, near the tail, in the rear legs.
Mm-hmm.
There is a small window leads to a deep shaft, and that shaft goes vertical and then horizontal.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that it goes till, I think, 18 or 15 meters under the
Mm.
Sphinx. But if does it go more? We are not sure because it is blocked. There was some kind of restoration work happening there.
Mm-hmm.
And the surprise that there is another tunnel, most of the people don't know about it. It goes into the body of the Sphinx itself,
Hmm.
from the tail, as if the tail is hollow from inside.
Mm.
But also
Hmm.
how high it goes, we are not very sure because they don't give permissions to go there because it is quite risky
Mm-hmm.
until they are very sure that it will not collapse.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have one under goes into the bedrock and one goes into the body of the Sphinx.
Hmm. And I heard on, I think it was the left paw, that there is like an open chamber underneath there.
Like a small room, 3 by 3,
Yeah.
and maybe this room is part of that. Like this tunnel I'm talking about
Mm-hmm.
leads to this room or
Hmm.
goes under this room.
Mm.
It's a high possibility.
Mm-hmm.
But
So.
this room for sure, yes, John Anthony West and Robert Schoch, they were using a kind of sound waves and they managed to define that, yes, under the lift bow, there is a room like 3 by 3
Hmm.
under the lift bow.
Wow. So interesting. So many more mysteries to solve.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, another
As you
question.
said, we in our tour, we are going to do a private permission to go into this area, which is always closed for public.
Mm-hmm.
All the other tourists, they see it from the boundaries. Okay, but we will be between the booths of the Sphinx for 2 hours, only our group.
Wow.
Permission.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to that. That's going to be, I think, one of the highlights because it's such a rare opportunity. I mean, who gets to actually go in that close? So it's very special.
Like 1% from all the tourists of Egypt.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Now, another question that I get asked a lot is about the deity, the god, whatever name you want to put on it, but Kek, K-E-K. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of Kek and what his significance is?
Say it again. What is the cake?
Kek. So the frog had a frog. Yes.
This is the story, one of the famous stories of creation. We have three famous stories.
Mm-hmm.
We have the story of Heliopolis, own. We call it the Ennead, 9 gods. And then we have the story of Ashmun or Ashmunin. We call it Ogdad, 8 letters. So On 9, Ashmun 8. And then we have the story of Memphis. It is just one person, the creator Bidah. So your question is in Ashmun story, the Ogdad, the 8 letters,
Mm-hmm.
4 cobras and 4 frogs,
Mm-hmm.
4 males, 4 females. Each couple is 1 frog and 1 cobra. So we have one of the couples is cock and coquette.
Mm.
Some people call it cake and coquette.
Mm-hmm.
The frog will be cake or cock, and the female we add T, so it will be coquette or coquette.
Hmm. So it's part of the creation story.
Exactly, the
Okay.
creation story.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this area is also very connected with Thoth or Jehuti, who has like one coin, two identities. We have a Netjer called Thoth or Thoth,
Mm-hmm.
Toth, or as a bird, the ibis bird,
Mm-hmm.
and his other side is Jehuti, the baboon,
Mm.
the animal. So, and he is the Netjer or the symbol of wisdom and knowledge, and also the teaching of the universe or the secrets of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So, as if the area was one of the places which can be called academy, teaching them the beginning of the universe and how those four frogs and four cobras created the world by mixing their DNA together,
Wow.
and as if we are using the DNA of the frogs, which is can live on water and on land,
Mm.
but there is something missing in their the circle of the DNA, which will be completed by the cobras.
Mm.
And cobras also, according to the ancient Egyptian belief, you will find that we have so many snakes and cobras in the Egyptian writings. I can tell you only 1 or 2% are representing real cobras and snakes.
Mm-hmm.
What about the rest? The rest are representing waves and energies.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I say we have a wormhole in the space. Why we call it wormhole? Because it takes the shape of the world. If this will be in ancient Egypt, they will call it the cobra hole.
Oh.
So we replaced the word cobra with the word worm in modern languages.
Mm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the Egyptians were using the word or the symbol cobra to talk about wave, spiral, or wavy line.
Mm-hmm.
But most of them are not real cobras or are not representing the word of real cobra.
Mm-hmm. It's a symbol.
So exactly. So that is the frog and the cobra are representing the DNA of the animals of our planet. Okay, with Thoth or Jehuti, the main symbol of the area, are representing the wisdom and how this creation happened in a precise operation.
Mm.
It wasn't random. It wasn't an act of nature. Things were interacting with itself and some mistakes. And no, it was from day one or from moment one. It was accurate creation and everything was done according to a certain system and order.
Mm.
And you must know that the twin or let's say the consort of Tos is Sishat, the lady with the flower above her head.
Mm-hmm.
And Sishat, we call her the cosmic architect,
Mm.
the designer of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Wow.
and,
Now, I remember, I believe it was on Elephantine Island that we saw a whole collection of cobras. Some of them were um, like part of the headdress or like a crown almost that people would wear. And I know you'll
exactly.
see that in hieroglyphs of like the cobra kind of right around the third eye.
Yes, in the museum of Elephantine Island,
Mm-hmm.
they found what we can call it the some pieces of the decorations and the crowns above the heads, but the heads of the statues. So these were not pieces from real crowns. It were the crowns of the statues and were fallen apart, and they
Ah.
collected some of them because we didn't find an actual crown yet from ancient Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
All the crowns we found are crowns above the heads of the statues, and a kind of disconnection happened, so we found the crown separate.
Mm-hmm.
Because some sources will say, we found crowns. No, they are not crowns for humans or
Mm-hmm.
for the real rulers. No, they are
Mm-hmm.
crowns for the royal statues.
Mm.
So, yes, we have also some designs. Sometimes you find just one cobra above the forehead.
Mm-hmm.
of the king next to a vulture.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the crown, especially for queens, is surrounded in a circle way, surrounded by cobras, as if
Mm.
you have this kind of, they call it protection, but I call it awareness.
Mm.
Not just from the front above the third eye, no, it is all around your head. And it
Ah.
covers your brain, it covers the pineal gland, it
Mm-hmm.
covers all your senses.
Hmm.
That's
Protection.
360 degrees.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. And when you see the cobra and the vulture together, if I remember correctly, the vulture represents wisdom because of its how it can fly up and has a better perspective on things.
Yeah, the vulture is representing motherhood, okay,
Motherhood.
which
Mm.
is protection and wisdom and the main teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and also representing North Egypt.
Mm. Yes, yeah, I've heard that
And
before.
the cobra representing the energy and the power of and the awareness, and South or Upper Egypt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
The meaning.
Interesting. Now, I also remember when we were on Elephantine Island, we walked all around, and we'll be going back there in March. And there was one section where we could walk down below. And I know the guards were kind of resistant to having us go there. And you worked your magic to allow us to look inside this closed off room. And the supposed theory is that the Ark of the Covenant was once held there.
Exactly.
Hmm.
This is one of the unique locations in Egypt. It is a regular temple, but like any other temple in Egypt, and I believe maybe in the whole world. But it seems that there is a huge cave under the temple,
Hmm.
as if the temple was built above three major rocks.
Hmm.
Looks like giant poles, okay? And there's a big space in the middle. So that is quite strange. And I will explain in the tour that we strongly believe that the Ark of the Covenant was hidden there for a long time
Hmm.
and maybe still hidden in the island itself. Maybe it's not
Hmm.
in the same spot anymore,
Hmm.
but my guessing it's still in the island itself.
Hmm.
And during the tour, we will present more evidences.
Hmm.
But I always tell this to my people: when we go there, you're going to feel some of the beam of energies still left from the Ark of the Covenant.
Well, I know I certainly felt a lot of energy in many of the different places. If you remember my experience in Abydos and how I was not feeling well, and I'm going to be recording commentaries of every day and what we experienced there. And the short story for the viewers who aren't familiar with the story is I wasn't feeling well. And that morning we went to Abydos, which is the temple of initiation, if I remember correctly, and I got more and more ill. And when we were leaving the temple to go behind, that's where the Osirian is. And I got so overwhelmed with the energy there, or just feeling ill or whatnot, that I almost passed out. And you got the police on the phone, and we got an ATV out there and took me to the restaurant, and just kind of was in recovery mode for a long time. And something that struck me was you had mentioned this, and then there were three or four other folks who independently came up to me and said that this was some sort of like purging in a way with my body, and the energy was kind of working its magic through me. And the other folks on the tour had said that all three or four of them had gone through a similar experience when they'd been in Egypt before. So that was definitely a memory that stood out to me. But
Because this place is the place when they, every year in the 25th, listen carefully to this, 25th of December,
mhm,
they declare that Osir or Osiris,
mhm,
who was dead the day before or the
mm,
whole year before,
mhm,
returned back to life.
mhm. Resurrected.
We call it exactly, so which we can call it Christmas,
Uh-huh.
an Egyptian Christmas day,
Yes.
as if you had the whole journey of the year in one day. You
Mm,
passed out and you were resurrected again in the same moment.
mhm.
New beginning.
New beginnings. Yes. And I felt that energy from other places as well. I know being inside the Great Pyramid and going into the King's Chamber and just all throughout. Um, in Luxor, I felt it. Um, in Dendera, I felt it. I mean, just all over. It was an experience, and this is why I think. I mean, I've always been interested in Egypt ever since I was a little boy. I almost went to study Egyptology until I stumbled across psychology, and instead of being an archaeologist outside, I've kind of become an archaeologist on the interior world. And I think so. It was a life dream for me to go to Egypt, and something that really stood out to me is you can watch as many documentaries as you want about these different lands. You can read countless books, but nothing replaces actually going to these sacred spots. And to know that for thousands of years, people would trek for miles. It was like a pilgrimage to go to these places, and it's just such an honor that we live in a time where we can actually go visit these same sacred spots.
True. I was just told the same thing from my friend Nathan.
Mm.
He is from Los Angeles, I believe,
Hmm.
and he just told me this the same thing last week. He told me after watching so many documentaries and movies and pictures, so you start to have a good idea about Egypt, and you may feel the Egyptian mystery, but it is completely different from the real field. When you watch the pyramid, when you see Karnak Temple personally, he
Hmm.
told me, no, this is completely different.
Hmm.
Okay? And yes, as you said, every site in Egypt has its own energy.
Hmm.
There is no two sites the same. As I always love to say and explain, they are, in my opinion, like a huge machine with many parts. Each part is responsible of certain action or certain energy, and you feel, I will not say different, but you don't feel the same in each place according to two things, according to what was the original function of the place, and also according to what is left from the original design, and that will give you the chance to feel high or low energy. If
Hmm.
there is much still left, you will feel very good energy. If there's few side or the design was like messed up with the locals or the Egyptologists,
Hmm.
then you will not feel much. But every site has its own unique energy.
Hmm. Now let's go back to Ark of the Covenant for a minute. What are some of the theories that you've heard, and what are your thoughts about what was the some of the secrets maybe inside of this ark?
Look, we don't have, unfortunately, any records from the Egyptian history. It is all the stories from the Torah, from the Old Testament, New
Hmm.
Testament, and some from the Islamic teaching. So it say it contains the tablets of the Israelites who left Egypt, was given to Moses, or when Moses went to Mount Sinai in San Catherine area, and the 10 commitments written, and they used the ark to keep it. So the ark was playing more like a safe. Okay, but I will show our friends in the tour that this ark is one of the pure Egyptian um, objects were used in the temples, in what we call it the Holy of the Holies,
Hmm.
the most sacred room in the temple.
Hmm.
So, as if the Israelis had used the chance to take one of these shrines, if I can call it now the right way, a shrine,
Hmm.
or we can call it a catalyst, okay? Because the tablets are made from stone, and also the statues for the knitters. And the ancient Egyptians said they used to put the statues inside the shrine. So the knitter or the god in
Hmm.
his shrine. So I call it the battery inside the catalyst.
Hmm.
So maybe the same thing that those tablets, which were made from certain kind of stones, are going to be energized inside the ancient Egyptian shrine, which was, we call it now, the Ark of the Covenant.
Hmm.
You got my point? So
Yes, yeah.
meaning it is like a catalyst for energy.
Hmm.
What kind of energy we still are not sure, but we are always talking about electromagnetic energy.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You'd mentioned netters, and I wanted to go back to that for a minute. It was so interesting going to these different spots and seeing how many gods, first of all, that they believed in. It was quite numerous, and how some of them had different colors. One that stood out to me was green, was kind of a theme. What are some common theories in terms of why they had different colors of skin?
Because colors here means different origins, maybe, or different positions.
Hmm.
Green, that is would be the color of Osiris, or
Hmm.
as I call him, Osir. This is the original way. Osir is our soil, which is
Mm.
black, but we don't see the black color all the time. So let's say in a few days of the year, we see it black, but it is always green. So that's why they painted Osir, which is representing this layer of mud above the ground.
Hmm.
And that is also one of the stories matches the story of Osir, that he is being dead and then resurrection and then dead. The same like the plants. Okay, we the plants will grow. That is will be life, and then will grow high, high, and then we make the harvest,
Hmm.
then death, and then will grow again. So it is the circulation of life.
Hmm.
The same like Osir. Some are painted blue, and we will find that blue is like Amun Ra. And
Right.
when we say Amun or Ra, this is the sun. So we expect them to be extraterrestrial powers.
Mm.
They are not from Earth itself.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
Betah also painted blue,
Hmm.
and some are painted blue with waves. So we know this is from water sources like Habi, Habi ibn Nile, and we have another representation for him to be the Great Ocean. And we think the word Great Ocean could be the Mediterranean,
Hmm.
but maybe not accurate. So it could be the Atlantic Ocean.
Hmm.
Okay? They call it the Wajwer. And the word Netjer, N-T-R, or as we call it N-E-T-E-R, this is the word for those beings from the ancient Egyptian times, and it was explained as god or goddess by Egyptologists. But I disagree. I call it force of nature or natural element. And the
Hmm.
word nature is the origin of the word nature.
Hmm.
So they are no longer gods like any other ancient civilization. They worship the sun, they worship other elements. No, those were elements of nature, and the Egyptian in the temples they were not studying, they were not worshiping them. They were academies, not temples, and they were studying the powers and the philosophy of such natural elements.
Interesting. I know something else that we'll be covering on the tour is the spirituality component to the ancient Egypts, and I know that they had separated the the kind of spiritual forces into different categories. That they said we had a Ka and then a Ba. Can you walk our viewers a little bit through that?
Yes, I always say that every big temple in Egypt is a huge hospital and academy.
Mm.
So we know academy for teaching, and the so-called priest, in my opinion, he was originally called healer.
Hmm.
So I think that those big temples were used as hospitals. They can heal the physical aspect of the person and the spiritual aspect also. Because the ancient Egyptians believed that there are five main parts or five main elements of the human for the human,
Mhm.
starting with the get, G-E-T, or get. Get means body, and this body from the soul will come from the space. Okay, and this is now one of the things when I talk about the extraterrestrials. So it could be us also,
Mhm.
not different beings.
Mhm.
So the ba will go into the get, and then the person will be alive.
Hmm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Uh, At the moment when the Ba will go inside the Get, so another kind of effect will happen, and a form will be created called the Ka. So the unification between the Get and the Ba is not going to create life Get only, but also will create another aspect called Ka, which is half spirit, half physical. Okay, so some people can call it consciousness, some people can call it um, desires,
Mm-hmm.
needs, um, your abilities to achieve emotions. Some people call it the ghost. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
as I said, yes, consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the last aspect, which will happen after death, when the Ba leaves the body, will go to the sky. But when it goes way up after crossing seven skies, it will change or turn to light. So
Mm-hmm.
not every soul will go to the fifth level.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Some certain souls with certain behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So after the seventh sky, it will be light.
Okay.
Again, Get, Ba, Ka. Sorry, I forgot the Ren. The Ren is the name. So each one has a unique name,
Hmm.
and that's why they said that you don't choose the name of your kids. No, it's just someone put it in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the name
Mm-hmm.
was already written.
Hmm.
Okay, so it will be the Get, the Ren, body, name, Ba, Sol, Ka, the ghost, if I can call it this way, and
Mm-hmm.
light.
Hmm.
These are the main five elements of the human body.
That stuck out to me. I remember when we were there, and how much the ancients really placed an emphasis on names. And like rulers, for example, if I remember correctly, they were given two names. They were given a birth name, and then a name that kind of represented their kingship or something along those lines.
Formation, yes.
Nation, yes. Uh huh. Uh huh. Yeah.
Exactly. Uh, you was very good student.
Good memory.
Yes. Look, actually, there are also five titles, and you will find that number five is considered also as a holy number. Number seven, number five, number nine.
Mm-hmm.
Each number has its own also power.
Hmm.
So they had five titles, but the most famous are the two titles:
Mm-hmm.
the birth name,
Mm-hmm.
which they call it Sarah, and that is could be any name and can be repeated. And one of the names most of the people don't recognize, that we have 11 Ramses. We have Ramses 1, Ramses 2, 3 till Ramses 11.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't call themselves 1, 2, 3. We did this in modern time to
Mm-hmm.
distinguish them. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so all of them were called Ramses, but the coronation name, we call it Nisu Piti name, is given to one king only, and the priest is going to design this name according to the shape of the sky the night he will become a king. So,
Mm-hmm.
as an example, Ramses II, his coronation name is Usir Ma'at Ra Setib in Ra. Uh, um, the name of city first, his father, Men Ma'atra. You will find that this name is unique, never repeated. Only in some certain cases the name was repeated in the lake of administration, and when the temple lost power and couldn't control. So some few kings repeated some few names from the old days.
Mm-hmm.
But the main law for 3,000 years, that those Nisobiti names are unique. No one shall repeat the name of the previous ruler. So
Mm-hmm.
each one has his own name. Like Tutankhamun, as an example, his name Nebkhurura never repeated. The name of Hatshepsut, all the other names like this never repeated. But some few, like the name of Thutmose III, was repeated. Ramses II was repeated. Okay, and we
Mm-hmm.
can say like maybe 3 to 5 cases only in the all the Egyptian history. But the law is no one shall repeat. Why? Because everyone has different condition and different mission from the other.
Mm-hmm.
The sky tonight is different from yesterday, different from
Mm-hmm.
So if I become a king tonight, they must give me the name according to the sky design and
Mm-hmm.
according to my mission.
Mm.
And that's why some people said that the priest understood that Tutankhamun is going to die young.
Hmm.
How? Because they give him the name Tut Ankh Amun, the living image of Amun. And we know in Middle East when you give such name to somebody, it will be the opposite. Like when you call someone the smart one, so he's not smart.
Mm-hmm.
The brave one, it's a kind of irony.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
So the living image, he's not going to live. Okay,
Hmm.
that's why he got the name as a kind of to express that he is not going to live long.
Mm-hmm. And when the rulers pass away, they have, I believe the phrase is an opening of the mouth ceremony or some exercise where they open the mouth. But I think it's also a metaphor, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you look to the symbol, they use it to open the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a long hand with the hook at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Famous of the Old Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And the leg of the bull is in another word called khibish. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And what is khibish is the star constellation, the Pleiades.
Mm.
So as if the spirit will go out of the mouth,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe the whole person, and will join the Pleiades stars.
Mm. Interesting.
It's a metaphor of a destination.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hmm. And kind of related to the mouth, the symbol that we would see all over is the Ankh, and how that would sometimes even be placed near the mouth. And I'm sure that
Yes,
had special meaning of life in the mouth or something along those lines.
exactly. As if they inhale or they eat or they swallow life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it is going to be inside their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
It is also sometimes as a metaphor for healthy condition,
Mm.
not necessarily long life only, but also as a healthy, because the symbol life is not. Uh, Unfortunately, some people they try to limitate this symbol as just the key of life.
Mm-hmm.
No, it is also a very important symbol for power and energy,
Mm.
because the tail of the Ankh is from the root, goes deep into the bedrock,
Mm-hmm.
and then the horizontal level, this is will be the horizon, and then the circle or the oval shape. It is the beginning of the power goes to the peak and then circulate again.
Mm-hmm.
So this I can call it, but not accurate as an infinity symbol.
Ah, okay. Uh-huh.
Okay? But it gets its energy from the bedrock,
Hmm.
from Earth itself.
Mm-hmm.
So it is one of the main symbols of energy also.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So it is life and energy.
And one thing that really stood out to me, I think we were in the Cairo Museum when you had shared this, but I had never noticed this before. But when you look at the different statues or pictures depicted, that you'll see sometimes a ruler will hold the Ankh in different positions, and I found that so fascinating. Um, can you share a little bit about the different ways in which they might hold the Ankh and what that represents?
Exactly. The most famous position is the hand will be on the side,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and especially the right hand, and they are holding the Ankh is like this shape, so they'll be like this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you see it?
Mm-hmm.
They're holding the hand, and this tail will go down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then we have other examples like when they have crossed hands,
Mm.
and they also hold the hand, the hand with the right hand, and it
Mhm,
will be above the heart.
mhm,
Okay, and in some other symbols, but this will be on carving if they are giving the Ankh, especially by knitters to the rulers. So we
mhm,
understand this one is like giving life, or it's like a present,
mhm,
or like a kind of powers being handed over to the knitter.
mhm,
So holding the Ankh in the regular way, this is a regular wish. They wish that the king is going to have long life, healthy life.
Mm-hmm.
Holding the hand with the cross, and cross the hand, the king is already dead.
Mm-hmm.
So the first design, the king was alive.
Mm-hmm.
The second, the king is dead. So what will be the benefit of the Ankh for a dead person? The second life. The ancient Egyptians believed that the first life is one part
Mm-hmm.
of the story,
Mm-hmm.
and it could be second, third, fourth. Okay, but we are very sure about the second. So he's going to go to the second life, and he will have a long life. So they put the Ankh above the heart to activate the heart in the second life.
Mm.
In the first life, you use your brain, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the heart.
Hmm.
But in the second life, no brain.
Hmm.
That's why in mummification, they don't care about mummifying the brain.
Mm.
Sometimes they take the brain out
Mm.
through a hole in the back or through the nose,
Mm-hmm.
and they may throw it away.
Hmm.
So they don't care about it. But they care
Mm-hmm.
about the heart. In the second life, you use your heart 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So they must activate the power of the heart by putting the cross, the, the Ankh above the heart with
Mm-hmm.
the right hand.
Mm-hmm. And that,
Famous,
yeah, go ahead.
famous example is the coffin, the golden coffin of Tutankhamun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that fits with the story about kind of weighing the heart against the feather and the importance of the heart and following the ma'at, as kind of the daily principles to live by.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that balance is showing that if this heart was following the instructions and the behavior of Ma'at, which is balance,
Mm-hmm.
like everything must be done in a certain way, accurate way.
Mm-hmm.
Either personal activities or behaviors or
Mm-hmm.
universal activities. Like the sun must, the earth is revolving, the sun is going in certain directions, and certain distance between the sun and earth, 1 millimeter further will be very cold, 1 millimeter closer will be very hot. The moon, so every natural element has its own timing and power,
Mm.
and the same for the human. He must act also according to this kind of system.
Mm-hmm.
If this happens, this heart will be called innocent.
Mm.
Maybe the word is not accurate. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say the heart will be a follower of Ma'at,
Mm-hmm.
and then will continue the second life
Mm-hmm.
in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
If the heart wasn't following the Ma'at, it will be guilty, and then a kind of a mystical animal called Imam,
Mm-hmm.
MM, will eat the heart as a symbol of end.
And he was a crocodile, wasn't he?
It's a mix of a big elephant, crocodile, hippopotamus,
Mm-hmm.
lion. Okay, it's like 5, 6 animals in one animal.
A bad dude. You don't want to have that happen to you. Yeah. Okay. A couple more questions. So one that was sent to me that they wanted me to ask was about Kemet and kind of the history of the word Egypt. And of course, this isn't the word Egypt isn't a word that was used by the ancients. And so if you could talk a little bit about Kemet and where that word might come from and what it means.
Okay, according to the ancient Egyptian writings, the official name of Egypt was Kemet.
Mm-hmm.
And that name was given to Egypt by the Egyptians and by the foreigners also during the ancient Egyptian times. How the Babylonians called Egypt Kemet, the Persians called Egypt Kemet, the Assyrians called Egypt Kemet, the Hittites called Egypt Kemet,
Mm-hmm.
and of course the Egyptians themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The word Kemet means the black. Uh, so when we say Kemet and we give it the symbol city
Mm-hmm.
or civilization, which is like a circle and a cross in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
so it means the black land. So we have Kemet as just black, like black color,
Mm-hmm.
or black ground, like the mud,
The
the
soil.
silt of the mud,
Uh-huh.
or black land. But that doesn't mean that Egypt was the Egyptians were just black people,
Mm-hmm.
because you may hear this in some places or from some people that they say that the origin of the Egyptians is the black race only. No, that is not true. According to the statues and the carvings we see everywhere from the Old Kingdom till the New Kingdom time,
Mm-hmm.
Egypt is what we can call it United Nation now.
Mm.
Multi colors, multi features. You will see in ancient Egypt African features, European features, Asian features, North African features. When I say North African, it's like Libyan, Algerian, Moroccan, Indo-Europeans, okay, even like similar to South American features like in Peru, in like one of the ladies came to my tour several times. She is a copy or like a twin for one of my aunts,
Oh.
okay, the wife of my uncle,
Mm-hmm.
she, as if they are twins
Hmm.
and they are almost the same age.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the word Kemet. Uh, because the Egyptians were practicing a kind of very strange science, and the Greeks and the Arabs, okay, couldn't find a suitable name to call this kind of science, so the Arabs call it alchemy,
Mm.
and the Greeks call it chemistry.
Mm.
Okay, so the word Kemet is not just the name of a country anymore, but now it is the origin of the word chemistry
Hmm.
and the word alchemy by the Arabs, which is chemistry in
Hmm.
English. But the name Egypt also original, it was called Het Ka Betah. That is the name of the temple of Betah in Memphis, and Memphis is the eternal capital of Egypt.
Mm.
Maybe he has changed it several times, but still as one of the main beloved sacred cities for the Egyptians.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the rulers, or let's say the invaders, the leaders of the invaders of Egypt, they must visit Memphis and being crowned as rulers of Egypt in Memphis.
Mm.
So the Greeks called Het Kabitah It Kabit. They couldn't say Ha, so It Kabit, Egypt, Egypt. So the word Egypt also is the origin of the word Coptic, which
Mm.
means Christian now, but it is
Mm-hmm.
originally Egyptian.
Mm-hmm.
But now when we say Coptic, we are talking about Egyptian Christian.
Hmm.
Coptic originally means Egyptian. So Het Kabitah, It Kabit, Egypt, Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
And is it familiar to say K, Egypt to be Egypt? Yes, we still use the same way. Some of the slangs in Egypt, Q or K can be pronounced as G or
Mm.
J.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, like we have the word, let's say, Kamar, which means moon, we call it Gamar
Mm.
with G.
Mm-hmm.
So we understand this. And when we give examples like this as modern Egyptian Egyptologists, we know what we are talking about because
Mm.
this is our traditions, our life, and we still talk some of the ancient Egyptian vocabulary.
Mm.
But we think it is Arabic language, which
Mm-hmm.
is not. When I studied this, I understood it is originally ancient Egyptian.
Mm. Okay. Does that have a special name to it, this ancient Egyptian language, or do we just call it that?
Look, exactly. The ancient, now if we call it hieroglyphic, this is not right
Mm.
because hieroglyphic is a type of writing. And we officially call it the ancient Egyptian language. But the ancient Egyptian gave us a name. They
Mm.
call it, which is unique name also, because if you read any book about the history of languages, they will tell you something. I'm not sure about how they reached this story. That a group of humans stood together and they started to invent the language.
Mm.
And like they invented the alphabet and then they invented. No, the Egyptian had completely different opinion. They said their language is called Midu Neter. Midu means descended, okay, downloaded.
Mm.
Neter, the netters, the nature. So this is as if they were taught the language. They didn't invent the language.
It was given to them.
Holy language.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that language descended for them from the sky.
Hmm.
Midu Neter.
Wow. I love these conversations. Every single topic that we have, I could go off in so many different directions and ask a bunch of more questions or have discussions about different things that come to my mind. And I think that's one thing that I'm really looking forward to on the tour is to have lengthy discussions all throughout the day, every day, about all these different topics while we go visit these very sacred lands and party. Have fun on that really nice cruise ship that I'm looking forward to, and spending private time alone in the Great Pyramid with just us. I know how magical that was last year, as well as being in the Sphinx and being, so up close and personal. Like you said, about 1% of the population is ever able to go there. Now, one question that I have remaining before we kind of wrap up here is about scarabs. I get this question a lot of what does the scarab mean and what does the winged scarab mean? So if you could shed some light, that would be fantastic.
Okay. Remember when I said number five is quite sacred number in Egypt?
Mm-hmm.
Also, we have five cycles for the sun. Okay, daily cycles and annual cycles, and it could be every 20,000 years. Also, we'll talk about this during the tour.
Mm-hmm.
But the daily cycle, they imagine that the sun during the first moment, the sunrise, it is a scarab who is pushing the solar disk to the east side. So it means here new beginning. So the scarab, which we shall not call it beetle. They are quite different. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
maybe the same big family, but the scarab is not a beetle. So the scarab, because the two front legs are quite different shape, and it looks like two wings or like two wide legs.
Mm-hmm.
And the scarab also is hermaphrodite. So for having new scarab babies, we need one scarab. We don't need two.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that is a symbol of infinity and a symbol of um, self. How do you call it? Creation.
Mm.
So it's a symbol of new beginning and a symbol of everlasting.
Mm.
So if, and I believe you may hear this in some other insects, if a nuclear war happened and all the creatures are going to die, the scarab is going to stay,
Mm-hmm.
last for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
The winged scarab is the flying wisdom and the flying knowledge, because you always see the scarab from the backside, walking on the ground. But in a temple like the Ndara temple, we will see they made the carvings of the scarab from the underbelly direction,
Mm.
which is a unique carving. All the other depictions of the scarabs all over the Egyptian walls are from the backside. So, as if this is a way to reveal the secrets in this temple. So,
Mm.
the scarab is representing also the hidden wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that and like the butterfly in the how do you call it, Buddhism, in the Tibet priests, they say wisdom is like a butterfly; it will come and land over your shoulder
Hmm.
by itself. The ancient Egyptian didn't call it butterfly; they call it flying scarab.
Hmm. Wow. And I remember seeing that image as we were walking through into the temple. And even the doorways have kind of some unique properties to them, with the material that they were built and their significance. And so I'm just really looking forward to the tour and what we're going to see every day. So thank you so much, Mohammed, for your time today and answering some of these questions. Hopefully, the viewers are going to walk away with some more insights about Egypt and maybe a growing desire to want to come visit these lands at some point. I know we still have room available on our tour, and again, it's the 1st through the 16th, if I'm remembering correctly, of March. And we will have to uh, shut it down and put like an end date for registering for the trip about maybe the first week of February or so, just so that we can get our hotel arrangements finalized and whatnot. So if folks out there are interested in going, to make sure and hop on that soon. And I'll see some of you in Egypt. So Now, one last thing I wanted to mention. I can't remember if we had discussed this or not, but you are heading to Nevada. You're coming to the States next month, and you're
Yes.
going to speak at a conference. Can you share a little bit about this conference? It looks
Yes. Two,
fascinating.
2 weeks, 2 weeks before the tour, I will be in the States between February 13 and February 25,
Hmm.
25th. I will talk about a very interesting topic. I think no one before in this kind of conference. It's called the Mega UFO Conference
Hmm.
in Laughlin, Nevada,
Hmm.
about the ancient Egyptian. Uh, Most of the people think I will talk about the lost technologies only. No, I'm going to talk about the lost knowledge, which
Mm.
includes technology and other kind of informations about the chemistry, about the stars, about the even genealogy, but so many interesting stuff. Okay, so in this conference, we will open the gates of different type of presentations because I think the main subject will be about extraterrestrials. But we will talk about the possibility about earlier civilization existed in Egypt before the famous regular ancient Egypt we know.
Mm-hmm.
A civilization was before the end of the Ice Age, was before 9,700 BC.
Mm-hmm.
So people will enjoy the listening to this presentation.
Yes, definitely. I know whenever we chat, I want to have a pen and paper ready just to jot down notes because it's always so fascinating. So, again, Mohammed, thank you so much for your time today. And if the viewers have any questions, they're welcome to jot that down below in the comment section of the YouTube video. And maybe we can have another Q&A at some point, or perhaps even do a live where people can ask questions in real time. So again, thank you for your
You're
time.
welcome, Alex.
Yes, and we'll chat soon.